Keep your eyes on the road and your hands upon the wheel. That bit of excellent driver education from Jim Morrison is something we're going to try to apply for road safety when riding this Ducati Multistrada 1200S. The idea of this project is to be able to do total hands-free navigation. So we're not going to involve a screen, or we're not going to mount anything on the handlebars here like an iPhone or a GPS to ruin the beautiful lines of this bike. My thought was to use an iPhone with Siri hands-free voice navigation, both for command and direction coming back from Siri, and to connect that via Bluetooth to my helmet. Of course, the iPhone will be out of the weather someplace, and we'll find out where. And to the best of our ability, we're not going to have any external wires or things dangling from the bike. So you'll actually see at the end of the project, everything is completely invisible, and everything is going to be hands-free, eyes up, heads up, and hands upon the handlebars, not the wheel. Now, the first technical challenge that you have to face, and it's really the only technical challenge, is how to keep the iPhone powered, charged up. And one of the obvious places to start, and I started here, and at the end of the day I didn't like it, was to use one of these 12-volt power connectors that's down here underneath the frame. And the owner's manual doesn't tell you much about the connector that you would use there, but as I did some research, I found that it's actually a BMW standard part, maybe common in European bikes. And I found this Optimate USB device, and that goes right in there, and it allows you to connect a USB wire. There's actually 2 ports, and they're pretty nicely designed. They've got rubber gaskets around them to help try to keep the water out of that USB connection. And there's one there, and there's one over here. And so if you swing this down out of the way, and I guess you could paint it black if you wanted to hide it a little bit, you can actually run a wire up through the frame here, and targeting this location, which is the passenger seat compartment. And you know, if you've had any time with this bike, you know there's a key lock on that, and that passenger seat opens right up, and you can get that wire snaked into there, and you could put the iPhone there. Now that worked, but after the first ride I realized that this connector is so close to the pipes, and that wire is so close to the pipes, and the standard iPhone wire is not meant for this kind of environment, that I was afraid something might melt back here, short out. It's really a temporary solution. I'd recommend you might want to pick one of these up just for emergency and casual use, but I didn't like that wiring solution at all. So I went for something else, and I'm going to show you that now. Once you have that passenger seat removed, it's very easy to take the driver's seat or the rider's seat off the bike, and it's not very difficult to get it back on. It tells you how to do that in the owner's manual, and that exposes the battery. And you'll see where I picked up 12-volt power. I'm using a SAE connector wire, and this is an SAE connector, so it's a very simple 2-connector wire. When you plug things in here, you can't get it wrong. You're not going to mess up the polarity. And they're often used to hook the battery up to chargers. This one's mounted here on my bike for the charger maintainer connection, same kind of thing. It's a simple wire, and it connects here to the battery terminal. So you'll see where I've added this wire. There's the red terminal connection, the positive terminal connection, and the negative terminal connection over here, and a fuse that's built into the wire. We'll call this a pigtail. That's what some of the mechanics call it. So this is an SAE pigtail. It's about 12 inches long, and I've hooked it to these battery terminals. That's an easy thing to do with a screwdriver. And you go to red to positive and black to negative. That's the only scientific aspect to this whole project. If you do take these terminals off, by the way, you'll probably have to reset your clock, but all the other bike settings seem to be preserved. And I ran this wire along the frame here, and I tie wrapped it to the frame and led it right over to the driver's right side of the compartment. Now, there's one thing that you want to watch out for, and I will show you that. When you put this seat back on, you will notice that there are some feet where the seat rests on the back of the body there. And you want to set the seat back on and make sure that wire is held over to the right side of the bike so that these little feet here can sit snugly on that on the body, and they sit right in. Let's see if you can see that. They sit right in there, right between that wire and the ridge, and that's where you want that wire to run. And if you hold the wire over to the right side and put the main seat back on, the rider's seat back on, it'll just stay there real nicely. I tried taping it, but I found that wasn't necessary. And when you're done putting the seat back on, you'll see that there's a nice clearance there, and everything will stay put. So let's get that driver's seat back on, and I'll show you how that looks once that pigtail has been connected to the battery and run back to the passenger seat compartment. Okay, the rider's seat is back on. It's sitting nice and flat on the frame here on the body. The wire is clear of these little feet that are right about there, and it slides back and forth very nicely, so there's some nice slack there. And as I said, if you don't get those feet sitting flat on there, then you're going to have a difficult time when you try to snap the rider's seat back into its lock. I'm sure you experienced owners know that there's a key position down there that lets you remove that rider's seat. So let's talk about the next part. And this is kind of the key to the whole project. This is a USB SAE to USB adapter. So there's the SAE plug, and here's a standard USB plug just like you'd see in a charger or on the side of a computer. So once you've done this, you can plug any USB accessory in and leave it back here in the passenger seat. Let's see if I can make that connection one-handed, because I am doing the acting, the narration, and the camera work on this video at the same time. But you get the idea. It goes together just like that. There we go. Done. And now we can hook something here that would be needing USB power. And for that, I got this standard 6-inch USB to iPhone Lightning cable. I got that at Best Buy. And when I checked out, the salesman was sure to make me aware that I was only buying a 6-inch cable. But that's all you need. You don't need any extra things laying around in the passenger compartment. So let's try a one-hand hookup on that. Shouldn't be too hard. And we'll cheat a little bit. There. All right. So there's your 12-volt cable coming directly from the battery. That's always on. So you can leave your phone charging here. It shouldn't draw the battery down by itself, I believe. And you plug your phone right in there, and you lay your phone back in the passenger compartment, And again, since I'm using my only phone to make this video, I'm not going to show you that part of the project, but I think you get it. So at the end of the day, we will have an iPhone powered up, constantly powered up, in the passenger seat compartment. And the passenger seat is locked down so nobody can steal it. And it's safe and dry and ready to talk to your helmet via Bluetooth. So the next part of the project is how do we talk to that iPhone so we can get Siri to help us navigate hands-free. Well, first let me apologize for the wind noise in those prior segments, but we're here at Sapphire Blue Ranch south of Denver, and I wanted to share some of the nice scenery back there on the ridge, and it's often windy, so we got a little wind noise, but we're inside now, and now I guess we've got a little room acoustics, echoes, but you'll get the picture anyway. I want to talk about the other major part of this system, and this is the unit that's going to connect our helmet to the iPhone, which is the iPhone's in the back of the bike now, underneath the passenger seat. And this is a Bluetooth communications link. It's the Sena, S-E-N-A 10S, Sena 10S helmet communication system. It also includes a bike-to-bike intercom function and some of its own voice-activated functions. This is the lowest end unit that Sena sells, the 10S in this series. So any of their higher end units will certainly do what I'm about to explain. So this is a very good system. It includes this unit, which has the batteries, the radios, and all the controls mounted on the side of the helmet. You can see it's pretty sleek. And then it comes with a couple of different types of microphone. I use the wired mic, which is inside the helmet, right up here. It's velcroed in there as a little button mic. There are earphones, of course, up in the ear pockets of the helmet liner, velcroed into the shell of the helmet. And it comes with pads and things to adjust that so that everything's comfortable. And I'll just say the wind noise in this helmet at fairly high speeds does not interfere with the system. It works well. The voice commands to Siri work well. And so far in all my ride tests, this system has done a great job of what we're trying to do, which is do voice-activated, voice-only navigation with Siri. Basically, you set this unit up. Be sure to download the latest firmware. The Sena system comes with a cable that is used to charge it. It plugs in back here, charges the battery, but can also connect you to your computer. And then there's a little piece of software called the Sena Device Manager, which will check your firmware, and if it needs upgrading, it'll download it and prompt you through that process. It only takes a few minutes. I had to make sure I had the latest version of the firmware installed for the pairing to work correctly with my iPhone. But once I did, it worked quickly and easily. You do the regular Bluetooth pairing process to get this unit to talk to the iPhone. And then we're going to put the iPhone in Hey Siri mode, and I'm going to explain that. But basically, in that mode, with or without the Bluetooth, you can basically come up to an unlocked iPhone, say, Hey Siri. You'll hear the Siri prompt, a little chime, and then you can ask Siri to do things like find directions. And you can do that even if the iPhone is locked, because your iPhone will be in the back seat compartment. It'll be locked and powered up, and you want that Hey Siri mode to enable you to interact with it from that state. Now, with this Sena 10S unit, rather than saying Hey Siri, you reach back and you push this little button here, and that is the same as saying Hey Siri. And I do recall that my objective here was to run this whole system without taking my hands off the handlebar, so we'll address that later. But for now, you push this button once the phone is paired, and it's the same as saying Hey Siri. And then you can You'll hear the Siri chime. There's usually a little bit more of a delay before that chime comes up. And then you can ask Siri for directions. You can ask Siri to find a gas station. You can ask Siri to find a roadhouse and give you directions to the roadhouse. Once you can ask Siri how far something is, how far away something is. And once you're en route, once you've asked for directions, it'll automatically go into Apple Map mode with voice directions as you go from turn to turn. You can, while you're en route, you can ask interesting questions like, what's the weather? What's the weather at my destination? How far is it to my next turn? How long will it take me to get to my destination? If you ask Siri what time it'll be when you get to your destination, basically the ETA question, she gives you time to go instead. So you'll say, Siri, when will I get to my destination? Siri will say, you'll get to your destination 37 minutes from now. And then if you say, Siri, what time will it be 37 minutes from now? She'll tell you your ETA. So that's how you get to ETA. It's kind of some tricks. Anyway, highly recommend that you just take your iPhone, put it into Hey Siri mode, as I'm about to explain to you, and then drive around, with the iPhone locked and in the seat next to you, and say, Hey Siri, and then ask Siri to do things for navigation and so on. If you're driving around with this system enabled, like I'm explaining, and you'll hear your text alert in the helmet, you can say, Hey Siri, or you can push this button, and I should say, and you'll hear the Siri chime, and then you can say, Siri, check messages, and she will read you the recent messages and then ask you if you want to respond. She'll take dictation for a response, check the dictation with you, and then send it if you like it. So very good, easy way to do texting without taking your hands off the bars or your eyes off the road, once we've addressed this question of having to push this button. So here's what you need to do to set up your iPhone. In Settings, under the topic of Siri and Search, turn Listen for Hey Siri on, turn Allow Siri when locked on, and select for voice feedback always. Under the settings called Touch ID and Passcode, turn voice dial on, and then under that there's a list that says Allow Access when locked, turn Recent Notifications on, turn Siri on, turn Reply with Message on, and turn Returned Missed Calls on. In the privacy setting, so that you can use map navigation, turn Location Services on, and then under that list for maps, select while using the app in order to do your navigation. And of course, turn your Bluetooth on and pair it to the Sena as described in the Sena setup instructions. And that's kind of it. The system is complete. It works well. In my next and final instruction, I'm going to explain how we can keep from having to reach up and push this button, which really, as I said, functions as if you were saying, Hey Siri, to a locked iPhone. Okay, let's dive into the last part of this project. So what we're going to tackle now is a way to allow us to control this Sena back button function from the handlebars. So instead of having to reach back here to push this button to trigger the Hey Siri functions of the iPhone, we'll be able to push a button on the handlebar. And what we found is a Sena RC3, Remote Control 3, and it is the smallest unit they make. It allows us to control this Sena unit from this button. They've packed a lot of function into one single button here to control the music, to trigger the phone or call Hey Siri, or to trigger and initiate a bike-to-bike intercom session. So there's a lot of function packed into that one button, which makes it a little difficult to use, which I'll explain. And then there's some plus and minus buttons for volume up and volume down and so on. What you'll notice when you take this out of the box is that it's curved, and you can see some of the mounting material that I've put on there to help mount this curved unit to a flat surface that I found on the handlebars. This is curved because Sena envisions that you're going to mount it on your tank, which we're not going to do. We're going to try to mount it up near the handlebars on a flat surface. So mounting a curved surface on a flat surface is challenging, but I think I've made that work. So one of the things that's not so obvious when you take this out of the box is how to get this unit to talk to the Sena main unit. And if you've printed out your Sena user manual or you can look at it online, you'll be able to discover what to do. But that's a little bit hidden, so I'm going to show you so you know what to look for and you know what it looks like when you find it. So first thing we're going to do is power up the Sena unit and wait a few seconds while that powers up. And we're going to go into configuration menu mode. And the way that we do that is hold this button down for 10 seconds. And while it's held down, it's going to go through some other modes. But we're going to wait for it to tell us that we're going into configuration menu. And there it is. And then we're going to spin this dial, which takes us through the menu units. And we're going to listen for remote pairing. Remote control pairing, and we'll push this button.
Configuration exit. Remote control pairing.
And we are in remote control pairing, and then we push the plus key and we hold it down for 8 seconds.
Remote control connected.
Okay, and it says remote control connected. So now this little device is connected to the main Sena unit, and it'll stay that way, I assume, for the rest of its life. And we'll be able to use it to control the Sena from the handlebars. Now, the way this works, and this is a little less than simple as far as I'm concerned. I'd love it if I just had to push this button and it would trigger the phone function, basically put us in Hey Siri mode. But a 1 second push of the button turns music on and off. A 3 second push of the button puts us in Hey Siri mode, and a 5 second push of the button starts an intercom call to another Sena unit, a bike-to-bike call. So you have to be very good at discerning if I'm pushing it 1 second, 3 seconds, or 5 seconds, or you may, instead of calling Siri, you may turn your music on. You may be trying to call another bike, and for me that doesn't work because I'm not talking to anybody, and just a little bit confusing about that user interface and packing so much into a single button. But that's how it works, and so we're going to go and put this on the bike and do a little road test, and we'll report back how well this button helps us in terms of running Siri from the road without taking our hands off the handlebars. Okay, we're back outside, and we've converted the bike from a touring configuration to a sport configuration. But before we go anyplace, we're going to attach that RC3 control to the handlebars. Now, to do that, I used these Scotch mounting squares. They're meant for indoor-outdoor use. When you use them, you use plastic connections, plastic surface on both sides, so it actually makes for a very strong and stable connection versus the type that have fabric on one side. Now, that little white foam area, that you can take a black Sharpie to that and it'll make this a little less visible. And you can see that this square is just about the perfect dimension to mount this button, and the fact that it adds some dimension to the curved side makes it work for a flat surface. So we've chosen a surface up here on the mirror mount, and you can see I've already put one of the squares there. I have another square on the back of the button, and if I put that in there and I give it a good solid press, it snaps right in. So that's a nice solid stable connection, about the best we're going to do with this button. The button for me is within reach of my thumb with a little bit of a stretch. my fingers are pretty long, so some of you might not be able to reach that so easily, but it seemed like the only reasonable place to mount this button up on the handlebars. And so there it is. The bike is set up today for sport mode, as I said. The electronics are selected to give us full 150 horsepower with high performance mapping, traction control, the anti-lock braking system, and the suspension are all configured for high performance track type use. So the owner's manual says that if you're going to ride above 120 miles an hour, and this bike will go well over 150, that you should remove the luggage boxes, the panniers. So they're off. And I can't guarantee that that button is going to stay on over 120 miles an hour or at any particular speed. And to be honest with you, we're not going to ride that fast today. But if you were concerned about that, you could just simply pull this off the mirror mount, stick it behind you in the passenger seat compartment with the cell phone, and you'd be good to go for high performance riding.
Born to be wild. Born to be wild.
Okay, results of the road test. Everything worked great except this RC3 button. So I was able to use the Sena connection to Siri and give commands all the way along the way. I was up to an indicated 70 miles an hour. I actually also ran my GPS track recorder. Wanted to see if that would work while it was hidden away in the back seat, and that works fine, so I got a good track recording of the whole trip. If I wanted to talk to Siri and I pushed this button on the back of the Sena, that worked pretty much flawlessly. So Siri always woke up when I pushed that button. When I tried to use this button, a couple things. One is that you'll hear some prompts that give you a clue as to how long you've held that button down. Those prompts are not audible at 60, 70 miles an hour, and so you kind of have to guess. And more often than not, when I was trying to talk to Siri, I had turned the music on, which was pretty annoying because I had no particular interest in listening to music, so I had to deal with that. So I'd say the button here, although it mounts well and it keeps your hands on the handlebars, would take some practice to learn how to use, whereas this button on the back of the Sena unit works real well. So generally, the whole system does what we want it to do. We've got to find a different way to wake up Siri without taking our hand off the handlebars, and maybe Sena has a solution for that they'd like me to test. I'll be glad to do that. Okay, well, that's the road test, and we'll go in and we'll conclude the project with some wrap-up comments and some details about how to get all these parts that we used in the project. Finally, just a wrap-up of the project here. I'm going to run through the parts that we used and let you know where you can find them. The first thing we mentioned was this Optimate DIN 12mm DIN to USB adapter, and this is made by TechMate, and it's called a O105. So if you look up those numbers, TechMate, you'll find this. You can find this on Repzilla.com, for example. I got this at a BMW dealer. Those power connectors on the side of the Ducati that look like small cigarette lighter sockets are actually a DIN 12mm 12-volt outlet. So that's what this connector is. And as I said, it's got 2 USB ports on this. It's kind of handy for an ad hoc USB connection. Maybe your passenger needs to charge a phone, whatever. This is a nice accessory. We didn't use it in the project, but you might want to consider having one. The second piece we talked about is the wire that runs from the battery and then connects to this SAE to USB adapter. So that wire I referred to as an SAE pigtail. The one I installed was about 12 inches long, and it actually came from a kit that came from the Ducati battery minder kit. So it was shipped with that, and it was provided to hook that battery minder to the bike's battery. I already had that pigtail on my bike, so that became a spare for me, and I used it for this project, and it was the perfect length. But if you ask your dealer for a 12-foot SAE pigtail, 12-inch SAE pigtail, they might be able to give that to you. Or if you buy one of these, a different version of it, these often ship with a pigtail. So this is an SAE, that's an SAE connector to USB adapter. This one is made by Tuning, MICTUNING. And if you just search for Tuning SAE to USB adapter, this will pop up. You can source it from Amazon and some other places. You'll also see a version that looks a little different than this, but it also comes with that pigtail wire. So you can get the two things together as a kit from Tuning, and that'll do the job. And then finally we have the standard USB to Lightning cable, and this is just a standard cable. I got this at Best Buy, and this one happens to be 6 inches long, which is perfect for this project. We didn't need anything longer than that. And then finally, to keep our hands on the handlebar, the Sena RC3. And again, that can be purchased from Revzilla.com or Amazon, or directly from Sena. And then the star of the show is the Sena 10S Bluetooth helmet communication system. The 10S is their low-end product, but it did what we needed it to do. I have a feeling that the 30K, which is their highest-end product right now, has some voice management features that might make this Siri integration a little more seamless. So, Sena, if you'd like to ship me a 30K, I'd love to test it out in this application and report back to all these Ducati owners how well it works. So I'd be happy to do that test. And then just a note to Apple, if you could get Siri to speak English with an Italian accent, we'd probably enjoy that. So just an idea there. So anyway, for all you riders, I hope this helps you navigate easily and ride safely, and keep your USB devices charged and dry and secure in that back in that passenger seat compartment, and have fun.